Hi, good morning. I welcome you to this video session that gives details of a GMAT one-on-one preparation through a personalized tutoring program. The agenda for this session is multi-pronged. We will explore which students could possibly need such a program, a one-on-one personalized tutoring program for GMAT. Why do we really need professional help for GMAT? How to do an ideal preparation for GMAT. How does the IvyLeague GMAT one-on-one personalized tutoring program work for you? We will get to know more details of the GMAT as an exam and the role of GMAT in the admission process of premier global business schools. Please note that, during this video session, I will be repeating or reiterating certain points. Please do not get disinterested when I repeat certain facts because repetitions are a teacher's way of ensuring that you understand the most important points effectively. Now, if I look at which students definitely need a one-on-one personal tutoring program for GMAT, then, let's see if you fall into this category. If you have less time to prepare for the GMAT, say, just 1 or 2 months because of your job, college exams, or admission deadlines. If you have already prepared for GMAT and are not satisfied with your scores. In fact, a lot of students do a lot of hard work for GMAT, but still cannot understand why their scores are not increasing with more practice. If you want to learn at your own pace, fast or slow. If you are a high achiever, you are ready to work hard to get the best possible GMAT score and do not want to leave any stone unturned to get a 99 percentile on the GMAT. If you want complete personalized attention with real-time monitoring of your progress by a specialized teacher. Or, if you cannot attend classes on weekends on a regular basis at our learning centers and need more flexibility of time. If any one of these reasons applies on you, then you need a personal tutoring program for GMAT. Now, let us understand, why does everyone need professional help for GMAT? Actually, GMAT is very different from all the exams you have given so far. You would have given a lot of school and college exams with which you would be very comfortable. The school and college exams are completely based on knowledge and a certain amount of application of knowledge may also be tested. While GMAT is not a knowledge-based exam. It is an aptitude test or a modified IQ test, so it tests your intelligence and attitude towards life. A lot of students do not know that learning or knowing English language or mathematics is not enough. The questions may look like English or mathematics questions but actually test other skills. Questions on GMAT use the language of English or mathematics but test psychological skills such as fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence, quantitative reasoning, reading and writing ability, short-term memory, long-term storage and retrieval, visual processing, auditory processing, processing speed, reaction time, etc. If I just look at one of these tested skills, reaction time. This is denoted as GT by psychologists and reflects the immediacy with which an individual can react to stimuli or a task typically measured in seconds or fractions of seconds. It is not to be confused with processing speed or GS, which typically is measured in intervals of 2 to 3 minutes. All of this kind of testing is pretty complicated and cannot be handled just by practicing mathematics and English or even by getting trained by a teacher who knows just English or maths. You need specialized trainers to help you. Aptitude tests such as GMAT require not only a different set of specific knowledge and its corresponding application but also a certain attitude and approach which is needed to handle the academically challenging global MBA programs and the future careers based on them. At IvyLeague, we know that aptitude tests such as GMAT are designed by experts in psychometrics, a super specialized area of psychology, and not by teachers of English and mathematics. So all our test prep programs are designed by psychologists who are experts in psychometrics and modified according to class needs by the teachers who deliver the programs according to the needs of the students. Our psychometric experts know the tests inside out and help you beat them. Another reason why you need professional help for GMAT is that the GMAT has a new format of exam with very different test dynamics. The format of GMAT is not similar to the format of exams you are comfortable with, Say your school or college exams, which were paper and pen kind of exams, and where you are given a question paper and you are left free for the next 3 hours to attempt as many questions as you can in any sequence. In college exams, you could skip questions and you could leave questions incomplete and come back to them later and work on them. In college exams, you attempted those questions first which you were comfortable with and later on attempted the tricky or difficult ones. Moreover, school and college exam questions had equal weightage and all the questions were scored. On the GMAT, the format of exam is very different. Instead of pen and paper, GMAT is a computer adaptive exam, which means that you give the exam on a computer monitor using a mouse and keyboard. Whatever question appears on screen, you cannot skip it, you have to attempt it or else the next question will not appear on screen. You are not permitted to go back to previous questions. GMAT is a front-loaded exam, which means that questions appearing early on the GMAT impact your score more than the later questions. Say the first 1/3 of the questions on quantitative or verbal ability section are 4 times more scoring than the last 1/3 of the questions. And if you cannot attempt the last question in time, then your overall score can drop down by 40 to 80 points. Let's understand the significance of this drop of 40 to 80 points. On an average, students who do self-study for GMAT for 3 months can improve their scores by 60 to 90 points only, so a drop of 80 points can waste all your efforts. GMAT uses an algorithm to calculate your scores in the 400 to 800 range, and that algorithm is a closely kept secret by GMAT, the organization that oversees the GMAT exam. We will learn more details about computer adaptive nature of the GMAT later. Another reason why you need professional help to prepare for the GMAT is that GMAT does not test all concepts of English and mathematics, but it tests some specific concepts only. This could be comprised of certain concepts that you would already know and others which you will have to learn right from scratch. If I talk about sentence correction, then your school may have taught you parallel construction but may not have taught you whether you can break rules of parallel construction in certain situations. You may know subject-verb agreement, but how do its rules play out in a subjunctive mood may be something new for you on the GMAT. Moreover, GMAT has its own set of rules which are not available in books or in public domain. For example, how do you prioritize rules, which means if all the options have a different error, then what answer do you choose? Another complication in terms of knowledge is that the GMAT is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. All your life you have lived in India and have a sound understanding of the Indian context or schema. But anything uniquely American can cause confusion. So terms such as sophomore, upstate, downzoning, rhetoric, affirmative action, council, local bond, daylight saving hours, community service, markup, syntactic, filigree, people of color, repertory, delinquent, fledgling, downtown, egalitarian, etc. create the major problem of you not even understanding the fancy language of the question itself. If we look at the various issues or problems faced during self-preparation for GMAT, then the biggest challenge is to effectively learn what can come on the exam or comprehensively cover the whole syllabus of the GMAT. So let's see how do students normally do self-study for the GMAT. Students preparing on their own buy the official guide to the GMAT, a few guides from various test prep institutes, and join various online forums for GMAT preparation. With this approach, students can make 3 mistakes which can just mess up their preparation. The first mistake is to use the official guide to the GMAT, without preparing the concepts and practicing questions from other sources. The official guide to the GMAT is an excellent book as it contains questions that have recently appeared on the GMAT. So these questions have to be used once your GMAT preparation has been completed. These questions have to be used to find out whether you have become capable of cracking the actual questions appearing on the GMAT. Using the official guide questions is to be done to do mid-course corrections and not to learn or practice at the beginning of the GMAT preparation. A second mistake made by hard-working students is to prepare from many guides from various test prep institutes. Every test prep institute has a different perspective about the GMAT and how preparation for GMAT should be done. When you use different guides from different institutes, then you get more confused because of the different perspective, different way of teaching, different amount of focus given to different topics of the syllabus, and different ways of solving the same type of question. This can make the students so confused that they keep on working hard and still see no improvements on their GMAT scores. You also have to understand that all GMAT test prep institutes protect their intellectual property or training methods, and they will never publish them. They use this protected material in their classroom training programs and never publish it in books available freely in markets. Another problem is that not even one GMAT guide available in the market comprehensively covers the whole syllabus with each and every subtopic and strategy for solving questions. Go to the bookstores and check whether even a single GMAT guide covers the 16 rules of pronoun usage, 16 rules of subject-verb agreement, or the 11 rules of modifier usage that appear on the GMAT. Or try to find a GMAT guide that teaches 8 strategies needed to crack the 8 types of critical reasoning questions of assumption, weaken the argument, strengthen the argument, inference, evaluate the argument, paradox, identify the reasoning, or boldface and parallel the reasoning questions. Similarly, if I talk about one single chapter from quantitative ability, that is counting, then check whether the bookstores have a GMAT guide that covers factorials, Wilson's theorem, remainders, product rule, sum rule, 9 types of permutations, 5 types of combination, 4 types of distributions, 5 types of selections, 16 types of probability questions, and the set theory-based questions. So none of the books available in the market covers the whole syllabus of your exam. The third mistake is to join online forums for GMAT preparation. There are many GMAT online forums, and they make money from the amount of time you spend on their websites and inadvertently view the advertisement pasted there. These online forums are not moderated for quality of information. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can create an account on an online forum and start sermonizing after announcing that he got a 790 on the GMAT. So you have no idea which idiot is typing in the information that you are learning from. Now comes a second challenge. Once you have learned a concept, then you have to learn to apply it so that you can solve questions based on the concept. For example, the concept of dangling modifier can have 2 ways of being tested, either by placing the right subject next to the modifying phrase or by converting the modifying phrase into a modifying clause. Every question on the GMAT can be solved by using various methods and formulas. A question can be solved by a difficult method or an easy shortcut method. Some methods may be easy to recollect but increase chances of making silly mistakes. For example, if a method involves several steps of calculation on quantitative ability question, then it increases chances of making a calculation mistake. But out of all these methods, there is a best method called a strategy, which ensures that you can easily recollect the right method when you look at the question, takes the least amount of time, takes least amount of effort from your brain, so that you don't get tired, has least chances of making a silly mistakes, and still ensures a 100% accuracy. This best method is called as a strategy for doing the question. You need to be good at understanding a question, identifying what type of question it is and which strategy will work best on it. When a student does self-preparation for GMAT, and does a lot of hard work, by studying from many GMAT guides, then this leads to a situation where the student knows several methods of doing the same question and struggles to realize which method will work best. So, you may end up choosing a method which invites silly mistakes, takes a lot of time, or may tire out your head. As a student, you have 2 options. Either you work hard yourself and literally do research on the syllabus to find by hit and trial method what is the strategy for solving each type of question that appears on the GMAT, or the second way is that you simply take professional help and an expert teacher teaches you only the right strategy for each question type. Say 5 types of critical reasoning questions need the CRA strategy. You use the keyword strategy to solve specific questions of reading comprehension and use critical mapping to solve general questions of reading comprehension. Similarly, time and work questions of quantitative ability can be solved by unit method or LCM method, but if efficiency of two workers is to be compared, then unit method is the better strategy. And the rule of alligation is found to be more useful when we have to calculate the ratio of weights or ratio of volumes. But if we are given the ratio of volumes in the question and are asked to find the resultant milk or water concentration, then it is best to use weighted average formula instead of the rule of alligation. You need to understand that algebra questions can be solved with higher accuracy if you convert them into arithmetic language, but the word problems which have an arithmetic language need to be converted to an algebraic language to solve them easily. Students doing self-preparation for GMAT have a tendency to practice more on areas that are strong but avoid uncomfortable topics in which they are weak. This behavior results in low scores and has to be avoided. So students need to do holistic preparation looking at overall syllabus and scores. If less questions come from a difficult topic, then the topic may demand more practicing time from you, if you want a perfect score. All of this preparation requires constant monitoring of your progress. Which topics have been mastered, which topics are still to be done, which topics require a deeper understanding, which topics require a superficial understanding only, which topic was covered way back and now needs a quick revision of concepts and attempting a few questions. You also have to strike a balance between how much time you are giving to quantitative and the verbal ability part. You also have to keep an eye on whether your hard work is translating into improved scores or not. If not, then you have to identify what is stopping your scores from increasing. To help students solve all issues and problems encountered during their preparation, we have devised 9 steps which we follow in all our programs that help in test preparation. These 9 steps not only provide a foolproof method to prepare but also keep the whole system idiot-proof, so that clear responsibilities can be given to the student and teachers at all steps and they can be clear about what work has to be done according to timelines. The program commences with a benchmarking test taken by the student at home or at our learning center. This benchmarking test is exactly on the lines of the real GMAT and has the same standard of questions. The reported performance of the student is assessed and an analysis of test performance report is prepared by teachers and is discussed with the student. This is an objective critical analysis from an expert teacher to comment on issues which may not be in public domain. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. Let us understand why a benchmarking test is needed as the first step. The GMAT is an aptitude test, and you would already be good or weak at a lot of knowledge concepts, question-solving procedures, test-taking techniques and test dynamics along with a certain sharpness of brain being tested on this exam. So the first step is to get a realistic idea of your present status by subjecting you to a benchmarking test. Attempting the benchmarking test helps in giving the right direction to your preparation. The overall score in the benchmarking test and the specific scores in various sections and subsections gives a clear idea about the road ahead and how much hard work or focus is required at various stages. The benchmarking test also helps in removing any misconceptions that a student may have about his abilities. Say, a mathematics honors student may think that quantitative ability would be a piece of cake, would find a low score on quantitative ability an eye-opener and would work better later. Once the program starts, the next stage is pre-class priming. We realize that all students do not have the same foundation of the topic to be taught in class. This foundation depends on what was taught to them during schooling. So to bring all students at par and prime them up, even before the class, students have to do a bit of revision of concepts that were taught to them in school several years ago, to increase familiarity of the topic before the topic is taught in class in detail. you have to casually read through the pre-class priming docs to get familiar with the topic to be taught in class. This helps you to easily understand the topics to be taught in class, and the class becomes more beneficial for you. Some topics such as critical reasoning, analytical writing assessment, integrated reasoning, etc. do not need pre-class priming as they are completely new for students and students do not have any exposure at all of them before GMAT preparation. The third step in the whole process is class training. During the class, an expert teacher teaches all concepts, right from the basics on a particular topic. Students have to take extensive class notes to remember concepts better. Then your teacher attempts representative questions to exhibit how the concepts can be applied to solve questions. You also attempt a class exercise in front of the teacher to find whether you can attempt all possible types of questions on the topic. This class exercise is discussed by the teacher. This helps in thoroughly understanding all concepts and question-solving procedures. Now you go back home after the class, and back at home, you revise your class notes. These serve as memory reminders and freshen up the class learning for you. As part of the homework, you may get reiterated class concepts along with concept exercise, which you have to attempt honestly from your memory to check whether you have learned all concepts properly. If you cannot attempt any item on this exercise, it acts as a reminder to go through the class notes again. You also have to attempt another exercise to check whether you can attempt all possible types of questions on the topic. This exercise is called the concept application exercise and has questions of the same standard as the actual GMAT exam. Now, when you go for the next class, you have to submit your homework of concept exercise and concept application exercise. The teacher will check your homework manually and does the needed remedial action by teaching concepts and questions on which you have made mistakes. And now the teacher moves on to the next topic. Then, in order to polish yourself more, you can practice more questions from a practice question bank and clear any doubts with your teacher. Our question banks contain all representative questions in enough of numbers to improve as much as you want. Say, if I talk about sentence correction, then apart from the latest official guide questions, the two question banks for sentence correction contain 1,500 questions, which is more than what is normally needed by students. So practice questions are pretty exhaustive. Then you start developing the temperament needed by learning from tests. You take topic tests and progressive tests to monitor your preparation and do mid-course corrections wherever needed. Each test has to be followed by analysis and remedial measures. Say, if you could not solve a particular question or got it wrong, then what was the reason behind it? If you could not recall the formula or concept, then learnt it. If you did not know the concept, then learn it afresh from the teacher. If you made a calculation mistake, then practice on more calculation-intensive questions. In a lot of cases, students, despite knowing the concepts, strategies and formulas, still cannot crack a question, because they don't read and understand it carefully. Each test will give opportunities and reasons to improve yourself. At this stage, even after a student has mastered all concepts and knows how to attempt every question that can possibly appear on the exam, he may still not be able to get a 100% score on the actual exam because of issues such as test anxiety, lower attention span, or stamina to apply brains for a 4-hour-long exam. Taking a series of mock exams ensures that a student can identify the problems which are stopping him from achieving a perfect score. Each of these mock exams are to be followed by analyzing the exam performance and keeping the teacher in the loop during this stage. So at this stage, you learn test-taking techniques by attempting simulated exams or mock exams to learn test dynamics, handle test anxiety, increase attention span, and develop a greater stamina to use your brain over a 4-hour-long test. We will look at these aspects in greater detail later. As a last step, you get clear about the dynamics of the test day and be completely prepared for it. Things such as what to wear on test day, proctoring procedures, test center procedures, documents to carry to the test center, what to do if you suffer a test irregularity, mandatory breaks, when and their duration, what to eat or drink during the break, what's permitted or not permitted. You will understand how the mandatory breaks during the GMAT can be used to your advantage. We will make you see videos of what happens on test day and how the exam is conducted so that you are not uncomfortable with the test center environment. Then you take the GMAT. And don't worry, we would even like to handhold you during the exam, but you won't need us. You will be ready to prove yourself and you'll ace the real exam. Though it's a 9-step process, but for you as a one-on-one student with IvyLeague, these 9 steps translate into 5 stages of preparation. First, benchmarking stage. Second, learning stage. Third, concept clarity and application stage. Fourth, polishing stage. And, finally, the simulated exam stage. The program commences with a benchmarking test taken by you at home or our learning center. The reported performance of the student is assessed and an analysis of test performance report is prepared by teachers and is discussed with the student. This is an objective critical analysis from an expert teacher to comment on issues which may not be in public domain. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. The GMAT is an aptitude test, and you would already be good or weak at a lot of knowledge concepts, question-solving procedures, test-taking techniques and test dynamics along with a certain sharpness of brain being tested on this exam. So the first step is to get a realistic idea of your present status by subjecting you to a benchmarking test. This benchmarking test is exactly on the lines of the real GMAT and has the same standard of questions. Attempting the benchmarking test helps in giving the right direction to your preparation. Stage 2 is a learning stage. All students do not have the same foundation of the topic to be taught in class. This foundation depends on what was taught to them during schooling. So to bring all students at par, even before the class, students have to do a bit of revision of concepts that form the foundation of concepts relevant for exam and were taught to them in school years. Students casually read through the PreClass Priming docs to get familiar with the topic to be taught in class. This helps you to easily understand the topics taught in class. Then during the class, teacher teaches all concepts, right from the basics. Student has to understand and take extensive class notes to remember concepts better. Teacher attempts representative questions to exhibit how the concepts can be applied to solve questions. Student also attempts a class exercise to find whether he can attempt all possible types of questions on the topic. This class exercise is discussed by the teacher. This helps in thoroughly understanding all concepts and question-solving procedures. Each class is followed by students attempting homework which comprises of workbook assignments. It would have concepts in 3 formats, written concepts to be mugged up. Fill in the blanks to identify if you did not understand a concept taught in class. Multiple choice questions to identify if you did not understand a concept taught in class. Objective concept application exercises have original questions from the GMAT to check whether you can actually apply the concepts learned in class on all question types appearing on the GMAT. Question bank homework. This bank of about 1,500 questions on each subject polishes your ability to attempt questions. Stage 3 is a concept clarity and application stage. In the next class you submit the workbook and the concept application exercise, so that it can be manually checked by your teacher. If you make a certain mistake or if you do not attempt a certain question, this indicates you need clarity on that concept and your teacher discusses these questions with you. This step will ensure that you master each and every concept and strategies needed to excel in the GMAT. Stage 4 is the polishing stage. As the teacher moves to the next topic you need to apply your knowledge on 2 sets of questionnaires. These questionnaires have actual questions from the official guides and papers released by GMAT. Over the last 20 years. Questions on which you mark a wrong answer, questions that you cannot attempt, or questions on which you have a confusion and need more clarity or a faster way to attempt can be cleared in a one-on-one doubt session with your teacher. The last stage of preparation is the simulated exam stage. During the last stage you attempt simulated or mock exams to understand, learn and excel in test dynamics. Even when a student has mastered all concepts and knows how to attempt every question that can possibly appear on the exam, he may still not be able to get a 100% score on the actual exam because of issues such as test anxiety, lower attention span or stamina to apply brains for a 4-hour-long exam. Taking a series of mock exams ensures that a student can identify the problems which are stopping him from achieving a perfect score. Each of these mock exams are to be followed by analyzing the exam performance and keeping the teacher in the loop during this stage. The charges for the GMAT one-on-one personalized tutoring program are Rs 5,000 per hour. As part of the program you will receive exclusive one-on-one time with your teacher to study and cover concepts and clear all doubts. Workbooks covering concepts and strategies that are required for the GMAT section and questions in 2 formats to drive home concepts and for the purpose of benchmarking your present position and identify areas where your knowledge is lacking. Questionnaires with about 1,500 questions on each subject tested on GMAT. Manual checking of your workbook responses by your teacher. Please take care the doubt-clearing one-on-one time with your teacher is treated at par with normal teaching time. These charges have to be paid in advance. The time slots are allotted to a student after the payment has been received. Personalized Tutoring Program normally takes a minimum of 19 hours of teaching time for verbal ability, 9 for sentence correction, 6 for critical reasoning, 4 hours for reading comprehension, and 3 hours for checking whether the candidate has understood the rules and is following the right strategy while solving questions. Similarly, quantitative ability needs 25 hours of teaching time. 3 hours for analytical writing assessment. If you have less time, we can decrease the amount of time. The candidate will receive classroom-based study material, practice material and 15 simulated exams. There will be no need to buy/refer to any other study material or books. The charges will be Rs 5,000 per hour. The initial charges for 10 hours have to be paid before classes. The time slots for classes are allotted to a student after the payment has been received. Sessions will be conducted 1 or 2 days in a week at a time mutually convenient to the teacher and student. Though the teachers will try to schedule classes on public holidays for your convenience, but this is not always possible. Each session will span 3 hours or more. This will be a rigorous program involving a lot of written homework, which will be monitored. So, if the candidate has other engagements besides the GMAT preparation, then it is advised not to join this program. To get a better perspective and to help you take a more informed decision, coaching institutes in Delhi for GMAT prep normally charge 30,000 for a classroom-based program, covering the whole of quantitative and verbal ability. The class size ranges between 20 to 60 students. The content taught as well as teacher quality, though, is compromised. Before enrolling for the GMAT preparatory courses with us, we will need 4 inputs from you so that we can help you in a more customized manner. Your detailed resume, list of any business schools and programs that you are interested in. Your performance on the GMAT. Even if you have taken the GMAT before, we will subject you to a simulated or mock GMAT and give you a detailed report on your present status. GMAT test performance analysis. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. We will subject you to a psychometric test, all about you. It has 5 subjective questions on which the business school essay questions are also based. Based on your responses to the exercise, we will give you a detailed report on your candidature to business schools. Initial profile assessment. This initial profile assessment is prepared by domain experts and comments upon how the admission officers will perceive your current profile and what changes in your profile can increase your chances of being selected by a good business school. After receiving your 4 inputs, senior members of our academic and admissions team will discuss how you should prepare for GMAT, how we can help you and what programs offered by us will help you best. If you are interested in our programs, please mail us your academic and professional details by attaching an updated resume at mail@ivyleague.us.com. If you still have any doubts or you want more details, then you can check our website www.ivyleague.us.com for more information. Or you can also address your queries directly to us. Feel free to send us an email at mail@ivyleague.us.com. Now, we will look at the finer details of the GMAT exam. Hi, good morning. I welcome you to this introductory session on GMAT. I will start with a brief introduction of our organization, IvyLeague Career Services. When IvyLeague Career Services started helping students in 1994, we realized that there is a huge gap between education provided by educational institutes, such as schools and colleges, and the expertise needed to excel in competitive exams, careers and life in general. Actually, the standardized syllabus followed in schools and colleges serves its need excellently well for the educational purpose for which it is designed, but on the other hand, aptitude tests such as GMAT require not only a different set of specific knowledge and its corresponding application but also a certain attitude and approach which are needed to handle the academically challenging MBA and MS programs and the future careers based on them. At IvyLeague, our psychometricians and faculty members know these aptitude tests inside out and help you beat them. We research the best of test prep programs available in the world and their pros and cons. We constantly take inputs from students, parents and teachers, so that we can design programs according to the needs and wants of students. IvyLeague helps students prepare for GMAT, SAT, GRE, and IIMCAT, and we also guide students in the complex application process for admission to premier global MBA programs and undergraduate and postgraduate programs in the U.S., through our admission consulting programs. The GMAT stands for the Graduate Management Admission Test. It is a standardized aptitude test required to pursue an MBA from globally renowned business schools. Developed by Graduate Management Admission Council or GMAC, managed by ACT Pearson VUE and conducted at Thomson Prometric Centers. Global business schools select those students for their MBA programs who have a well-rounded personality with some differentiating factors to add diversity to their batches to promote peer learning. In the admission process, business school admission committees check some numerical parameters and subjective parameters in the candidates. The numerical parameters includes past academic grades and GMAT scores. Actually, in order to improve their own ranking, the top business schools may even decide on a threshold GMAT score to weed out a lot of students initially and later get down to studying the profiles of remaining students. So GMAT can have a major influence on your candidature in a top-end business school. On taking the GMAT, you get 3 scores, a score of 0 to 6 for your performance on AWA, or Analytical Writing Assessment, a score of 1 to 8 for your performance on Integrated Reasoning, and the most important score in the range of 200 to 800 for your performance on Quantitative Ability and Verbal Ability sections. The GMAT scores are valid for 5 years, or less for some business schools such as the Indian Institutes of Management prefer fresh scores. Moreover, as Indian students are ESL students, ESL stands for English as Secondary Language students, so they have to take the TOEFL or IELTS as well, though waivers or exemptions possible. You have to register online at www.mba.com for the GMAT. The fee is $250 and is payable only by credit card. Moreover, during the whole process of preparing for GMAT, taking the GMAT, applying to business schools and finally to join a business school after selection, you need to have a valid passport with at least 6 months of validity as a must. On the GMAT, you are tested at 3 levels. At the first level, a certain threshold of knowledge is required and tested. This could be comprised of certain concepts that you would already know and others which you will have to learn right from scratch. If I talk about sentence correction, then your school may have taught you parallel construction but may not have taught you whether you can break rules of parallel construction in certain situations. You may know subject-verb agreement, but how do its rules play out in a subjunctive mood may be something new for you on the GMAT. Moreover, GMAT has its own set of rules which are not available in books or in public domain. For example, how do you prioritize rules, which means if all the options have a different error, then what answer do you choose? Another complication in terms of knowledge is that the GMAT is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. The second level of testing on the GMAT is hallmarks of intelligence. Remember that GMAT is an IQ test modified to the requirements of the MBA admission process. Certain questions test whether you behave like a really intelligent person with an IQ above a 150. Really intelligent people with an above-average IQ have a certain different way of thinking and approach problems in a different manner. For example, such intelligent people use a sequential objective method to reach a conclusion or a decision. This sequential objective method is required in critical reasoning. Such intelligent people understand the concept of picking answers according to needs of scope and relevance to the argument in critical reasoning questions. Such intelligent people understand the importance of evidence-based reading comprehension and keep away from extrapolation and inductive logic. They also have a tendency to look for symmetry in constructing their sentences and keep away from politically incorrect or extreme language. They also do not rely on their memory and have an inclination for doing scratch work or rough work to calculate their answer accurately. Moreover, they use different strategies to do different kinds of questions. Actually, a question can be attempted by many methods, and the method which ensures that you take least amount of time and with least chance of making a silly or a technical mistake is called as its strategy. For example, they convert algebra questions into an arithmetic language to crack them. If you do not do all these things automatically, you will have to learn them. We can help you in learning these hallmarks of intelligence. The third level of testing on the GMAT is test-taking dynamics. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. A. In terms of anxiety, just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. B. Understand what is a lower attention span. You have an attention span of 1 hour, but this is a 4-hour exam, so after the first hour, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. C. In terms of stamina, after an hour or 2 of testing, your brain gets tired, so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember, you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. D. Lastly, as the GMAT has a different format of exam, so taking an online exam on the computer monitor is uncomfortable to a lot of students. You have always done paper and pencil kind of tests, so reading from the screen works against your scores. The solution is attempting greater number of mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on online testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, Analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. So what subjects does the GMAT test you on? GMAT tests the following 4 subjects in the 4 different sections on the exam. The test begins with AWA, or Analytical Writing Assessment, followed by Integrated Reasoning, Quantitative Ability and Verbal Ability. The Analytical Writing Assessment section measures your ability to think critically and to communicate your ideas. During the AWA, you are asked to analyze the reasoning behind a given argument and write a critique of that argument. You are given a realistic-looking argument on screen and you are asked to analyze the reasoning behind that argument. So, you have to type out an essay in which you have to critique that argument for its weaknesses and suggest what can make the argument more cogent and convincing. To get a good score on AWA, you need to know the mechanics of essay writing and be good at critical reasoning, so that you can figure out the technical assumptions in the given argument. Moreover, you need to have a respectable typing speed of at least 30 words per minute. In the AWA section, you get a score in the range of 0 to 6. A score of 4.5 or more is considered a hygiene factor on the AWA section. Now let us look at an example of an AWA prompt to get a better idea. Please spend a moment on this. The following appeared in an announcement issued by the publisher of the Mercury, a weekly newspaper. Since a competing lower-priced newspaper, the Bugle, was started 5 years ago, the Mercury's circulation has declined by 10,000 readers. The best way to get more people to read the Mercury is to reduce its price below that of the Bugle, at least until circulation increases to former levels. The increased circulation of the Mercury will attract more businesses to buy advertising space in the paper. Discuss how well reasoned you find this argument. In your discussion, be sure to analyze the line of reasoning and the use of evidence in the argument. For example, you may need to consider what questionable assumptions underlie the thinking and what alternative explanations or counterexamples might weaken the conclusion. You can also discuss what sort of evidence would strengthen or refute the argument, what changes in the argument would make it more logically sound, and what, if anything, would help you better evaluate its conclusion. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. After 30 minutes of testing time for AWA, without a break, the next section starts. The second subject or section is Integrated Reasoning. The Integrated Reasoning section measures your ability to evaluate information presented in multiple formats from multiple sources, skills you need to succeed in our technologically advanced and data-driven world. All this is just jargon to psych you out. Actually, in Integrated Reasoning, you have to answer questions based on mix of a table, a pie diagram, a graph and a paragraph of free-flowing text. You need to be good at data interpretation and making sense of graphical information. In the Integrated Reasoning section, you get a score range of 1 to 8. A score of 6 points or more is considered desirable on the Integrated Reasoning section. This consists of 12 questions in 4 formats: multi-source reasoning, graphic interpretation, two-part analysis, and table analysis. Questions are designed to measure how well you integrate data to solve complex problems, so you must answer all parts of a single question correctly to receive credit. Integrated Reasoning section on the GMAT exam permits users access to a standard basic calculator, which is available on screen. Now, let us look at an example of an integrated reasoning question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. If you want, you can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. Please spend a moment on this. Immediately after the integrated reasoning section of 30 minutes gets over, you get an optional break of 8 minutes before the third section on the GMAT, the quantitative ability section, starts. This quantitative ability section cannot be called a mathematics section because school or college type of mathematics is not tested. The questions test easier mathematical concepts and involve less complex calculations, though the questions are trickier and each question tempts you to make silly mistakes in terms of understanding the question and how you finally attempt the question. The quantitative section of the GMAT measures the ability to reason quantitatively, solve quantitative problems, interpret graphic data, and analyze and use information given in a problem. The use of calculators is not allowed on the quantitative section of the GMAT. Test takers must do their math work out by hand using a dry erase pen and laminated graph paper which are given to them at the testing center. Questions require knowledge of topics such as arithmetic, algebra, geometry and modern math. Scores range from 0 to 60, although GMAT only reports scores between 11 and 51. On the quantitative ability section, questions are presented in two formats or designs called as problem solving and data sufficiency. Now, let us look at an example of a quantitative ability problem solving question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. Please spend some time on this. Now, let's look at an example of a quantitative ability data sufficiency question. Data sufficiency is a unique question type that appears on the GMAT and is designed to measure the ability to understand and analyze a quantitative problem, recognize what information is relevant or irrelevant and determine at what point there is enough information to solve a problem or recognize the fact that there is insufficient information given to solve a particular problem. The directions are complicated on a data sufficiency question and these directions need to be understood properly before you start solving this question type. These are the standard directions that you will see for data sufficiency questions when you take the GMAT test. If you read them carefully and understand them clearly before going to sit for the test, you will not need to spend too much time reviewing them once you are at the test center and the test is underway. The directions say, each data sufficiency problem consists of a question and two statements, labeled 1 and 2, which contain certain data. Using these data and your knowledge of mathematics and everyday facts, such as the number of days in July or the meaning of the word counterclockwise, decide whether the data given are sufficient for answering the question and then indicate one of the following answer choices. You mark option A if statement 1 alone is sufficient, but statement 2 alone is not sufficient. You mark option B if statement 2 alone is sufficient, but statement 1 alone is not sufficient. You mark option C if both statements together are sufficient, but neither statement alone is sufficient. You mark option D if each statement alone is sufficient. You mark option E if statements 1 and 2 together are not sufficient. Please note that in data sufficiency problems that ask for the value of a quantity, the data given in the statements are sufficient only when it is possible to determine exactly one numerical value for quantity. Now, let us look at an example of a quantitative ability data sufficiency question. The right answer has been marked for you. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. Please spend some time on this. After the quantitative ability section of 75 minutes gets over, you get an optional break of 8 minutes before the fourth and last section on the GMAT starts. The fourth section on the GMAT is the verbal ability section, or put simply the English section. The verbal ability section is the hardest section on the GMAT to score in for all types of students, whether American or Asian, whether from a great convent school background or from a non-English medium school background. To make matters worse, the verbal section appears on your screen after you have already been tested for 2 hours and 35 minutes, so you are already exhausted and tired, and this section needs a fresh mind. These issues make this section even more challenging. The verbal section of the GMAT exam measures the test taker's ability to read and comprehend written material, reason and evaluate arguments, and correct written material to express ideas effectively in standard written English. Scores range from 0 to 60, although they only report scores between 11 and 51. The verbal ability section has 3 types of questions on reading comprehension, critical reasoning, and sentence correction. The reading comprehension part involves answering questions based on a passage. This seems to be a familiar area, as we all have done a lot of practice of reading comprehension in our schools. But the reading comprehension done in schools is straightforward, while reading comprehension of GMAT is pretty confusing and sneaky. Reading passages contain material from subject areas like social sciences, history, physical sciences, and business-related areas, marketing, economics, human resource management, etc. Reading comprehension passages are accompanied by interpretive, applied, and inference questions. This section measures the following abilities: 1. Understanding words and statements in reading passages. 2. Understanding the logical relationships between significant points and concepts in the reading passages. 3. Drawing inferences from facts and statements in the reading passages. 4. Understanding and following the development of quantitative concepts as they are presented in verbal material. And 5. Understanding the author's point of view and their proposed arguments. These are the standard directions that you will see for reading comprehension questions when you take the GMAT test. If you read them carefully and understand them clearly before going to sit for the test, you will not need to spend too much time reviewing them once you are at the test center and the test is underway. The directions say that each passage is followed by questions about its content. After reading a passage, select the best answer to each question among the 5 choices. Answer all questions following a passage on the basis of what the passage states or implies. Now, let us look at an example of a real verbal ability reading comprehension question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. Please spend a moment on this. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. The sentence correction questions ask the test taker to determine if there is a mistake with a given sentence, and if so, to determine the best way in which the sentence should be written according to requirements of standard written English, paying attention to grammar, word choice, and sentence construction. The best answer produces the most effective sentence, which makes the sentence clear, exact, and free of grammatical error. It should also have minimum awkwardness, ambiguity, and redundancy. These are the standard directions that you will see for sentence correction questions when you take the GMAT test. If you read them carefully and understand them clearly before going to sit for the test, you will not need to spend too much time reviewing them once you are at the test center and the test is underway. Sentence correction questions present a sentence, part or all of which is underlined. Beneath the sentence, you will find 5 ways of phrasing the underlined passage. The first answer choice repeats the original underlined passage. The other 4 are different. If you think the original phrasing is best, choose the first answer. Otherwise, choose one of the others. This type of question tests your ability to recognize the correctness and effectiveness of expression in standard written English. In choosing your answer, follow the requirements of standard written English. That is, pay attention to grammar, choice of words, and sentence construction. Choose the answer that produces the most effective sentence. This answer should be clear and exact, without awkwardness, ambiguity, redundancy, or grammatical error. Now, let us look at an example of a real verbal ability sentence correction question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. Please spend some time on this. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. The third type of questions on verbal ability section are called as critical reasoning questions. These questions are designed to test the reasoning skills involved in making arguments, evaluating arguments, and formulating or evaluating a plan of action. Questions are based on materials from a variety of sources. This section measures the following abilities: argument construction, argument evaluation, and formulating and evaluating a plan of action. These are the standard directions that you will see for critical reasoning questions when you take the GMAT test. If you read them carefully and understand them clearly before going to sit for the test, you will not need to spend too much time reviewing them once you are at the test center and the test is underway. The directions say that for these questions, select the best of the answer choices given. Each of the critical reasoning questions is based on a short argument, a set of statements, or a plan of action. For each question, select the best answer of the choices given. Now, let us look at an example of a real critical reasoning question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. Please spend a moment on this. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. This is a holistic view of the complete battlefield for you. I am also reiterating a few important things here. The GMAT starts with AWA, or Analytical Writing Assessment. In AWA section you have to type out an essay in a time duration of 30 minutes. You can get a score in the range of 1 to 6 for your performance on AWA, as long as your essay is on the topic, but if your essay is off course, then you may even get a 0. A 0 score also results if you use a profanity on the essay. The next section is Integrated Reasoning. In IR section, you will be attempting 12 questions based on data presented in the form of paragraphs, graphs, and tables for a time duration of 30 minutes. You can get a score in the range of 1 to 8 for your performance on Integrated Reasoning section. After the Integrated Reasoning section, you get a break of a maximum of 8 minutes, in which you can access your locker to eat and drink or visit the washroom. Take care that if you exceed your break beyond 8 minutes, then the next section of Quantitative Ability will start automatically. Quantitative Ability section has 37 questions to be attempted in a maximum of 75 minutes. You can get a score in the range of 0 to 60 for your performance on Quantitative Ability section. After the Quantitative Ability section, you again get a break of a maximum of 8 minutes, in which you can access your locker to eat and drink or visit the washroom. Take care that if you exceed your break beyond 8 minutes, then the next section OF Verbal Ability will start automatically. Verbal Ability section has 41 questions to be attempted in a maximum of 75 minutes. You can get a score in the range of 0 to 60 for your performance on Verbal Ability section. For your performance on Quantitative Ability and Verbal Ability section, you get an overall score in the range of 200 to 800. Once the Verbal Ability section gets over, you are given the option of accepting your scores or canceling the test. Take care that you are asked whether you will accept your scores or not without you even knowing the score, so you have to take a decision without knowing your scores. Moreover, even if you cancel your test, your future GMAT scorecards will show that you took the test on that particular day and canceled your scores. Now, let us know more about the intricacies of the GMAT. It is a computer adaptive test, CAT, which basically means that GMAT is not a paper and pencil kind of a test. You have to take this test on the computer monitor. So it's a new uncomfortable test format. Moreover, you cannot scribble notes, tick or underline on the question paper. You will have to attempt whatever question appears on the screen, as you cannot browse through the whole paper or cannot attempt easy comfortable questions first. You cannot leave a question. The difficulty level of a question depends on past performance, so as you perform excellently on the test, the level of difficulty of questions becomes greater. Now, apart from all this, a lot of test-taking techniques that you practiced and learnt in your school and college exams do not work on the GMAT. Say in case of your school and college exams, the perfect strategy is that once you receive your question paper, you browse through the whole question paper, and decide what will you attempt first. So you prepare your own sequence of attempting questions and do not follow the sequence given in the question paper. If you get stuck on a question, leave it and attempt it later. If you got a question wrong, attempt it again. You attempt the paper with a frenzy and finish off as much as possible. Moreover, every question in the paper carries marks. But on the GMAT, you can see only one question at a time, and unless and until you mark the answer, the next question will not appear on the screen. You cannot skip a question. You can't return to previous questions. You can't change an answer. The GMAT is a front-loaded test, which means that the first few questions are much more important than the later few. You must finish the sections, as GMAT has a strong penalty for not finishing. Moreover, there are a few experimental questions in each section, which are not scored, but you act as a guinea pig to rate the difficulty level of these questions. 9 out of 37 questions of quantitative ability and 11 out of 41 questions of verbal ability are experimental in nature. That's a whopping 25% of questions. You can take the GMAT almost any day. The exam lasts for about 4 hours, making it a test of stamina, concentration, mental toughness and pacing. All these are as important as preparation. In the computer adaptive testing format, questions differ for each test taker, depending on performance. This CAT format is applicable only to quantitative and verbal sections. For every correct answer, you see a rise in scores and end up with a more difficult question next. For every incorrect answer, your scores go down and you end up seeing more easy question next. As a result of all this, harder questions count more than the easier ones, as harder questions reflect a good performance on the exam. But bad performance in one section does not affect the other section. Say, a perfect performance on quantitative ability section does not result in more difficult questions in the verbal section. They are unrelated. In terms of scores on the GMAT, scores in ARWA essay grades range from 0 to 6 and 0.5 increments. In integrated reasoning, grades range from 1 to 8 in 1 increments. Quantitative aptitude grades range from 0 to 51, called as the scaled score. 51 corresponds to a 99 percentile, the highest anyone can get. Verbal ability grades range from 0 to 51, called as the scaled score. 46 to 51 corresponds to 99 percentile, the highest anyone can get. Based on quantitative and verbal ability, the total score ranges from 200 to 800 in 10-point increments. 760 to 800 means 99 percentile, the highest anyone can get. If you get a scaled score of 51 on both quantitative and verbal ability, it results in a score of the perfect 800. You can take the GMAT once per calendar month and not more than 5 times in one calendar year. The scores are valid for 5 years. You may cancel the score, but all test date scores are shown on record. All scores of all tests within last 5 years sent to schools. You will see your verbal, quantitative and the total score, 200 to 800, immediately. Official report comes after 2 to 3 weeks, with essay grades. You can send scores to 5 schools for free. If one scores a perfect 800, one can't retake the test for 5 years. Okay, now, let us understand how an adaptive test is designed. The quantitative and verbal ability section questions are arranged in 7 levels of difficulty. Each of these questions have already been tested on thousands of students as experimental questions to get the difficulty ranking between 1 and 7. A question which 95% of students have got correct is assigned as the easiest or level 1 question. Similarly, a question which 95% of students have got incorrect is assigned as the hardest or level 7 question, so predictably only a bare 5% students would get it correct. The exam starts with a medium difficulty level or level 4 question and your score is around 500. Now if you get this first question correct, then your score moves up and you see a more difficult or level 5 question on the screen next. On the contrary, if you got the first question incorrect, then your score moves down and you see a less difficult or level 3 question on the screen next. So your score and the level of difficulty of questions keeps moving up and down during the test. Moreover, the GMAT is a front-loaded exam, which means that questions that appear early on in a section have a greater impact on your final score as compared to questions that appear later in the exam. So the initial 1/3 of the questions can impact your score by 40 points while the last 1/3 of questions can affect your score by 10 points. So to maximize your scores, you should be extra careful on your initial questions, by going slow and even recalculating out the answer to avoid any mistakes. GMAT also has a strong penalty for not completing a section on time. Say if you leave the last question unattempted, then it will bring down your scores by 80 points. In order to understand how to exploit GMAT for its adaptability and front-loaded nature, let's take the example of 2 students, Normal Nick and Smart Sid, who take the test. For sake of keeping it simple, suppose the test has a bare 5 questions. Nick takes the exam first and gets the first 2 questions wrong and rest of the 3 correct and gets a certain score. On the other hand, when Sid takes the test, he gets the first 2 questions correct, gets the third one wrong, 4th correct and 5th wrong and lands up with a certain score. You can now see that although both of them got 3 questions right and 2 wrong, still Sid ends up with a higher score. Actually, mistakes at the beginning of the test cost dearly. So to maximize your score, go slow and more careful with the initial questions, and later if you make a few mistakes as you go faster, still your scores would have risen so high that it wouldn't really impact your scores. Actually, the test paper of the GMAT is researched and designed in such a manner that across a month when students take the test, their scores follow a bell curve, where a very small number of students get a score of 200 or an 800, but a maximum number of students get a 50 percentile score of 540. As the question paper has all 7 levels of questions, is adaptive and uses a certain algorithm to ensure that the bell curve is maintained. The bank of questions is changed every calendar month. When students take the GMAT, approximately 1/4 of the questions are experimental in nature. Suppose 95% of students get a particular question incorrect, then it will get assigned as the hardest or level 7 question. On the other hand, if 95% of students get a particular question correct, then it will get assigned as the easiest or level 1 question. This mechanism ensures that GMAT already knows before a single student has taken a GMAT paper that 50% of the students will land up with a score of 540. This mechanism is what you need to beat and fall into the desired green region of the bell curve. Actually, the standardized syllabus followed in schools and colleges serves its need excellently well for the educational purpose for which it is designed. Aptitude tests such as GMAT, SAT, GRE and IIMCAT require not only a different set of specific knowledge and its corresponding application, but also a certain attitude and approach which is needed to handle the academically challenging courses and the future careers based on them. At IvyLeague, we know that aptitude tests such as GMAT, SAT, GRE and IIMCAT are designed by experts in psychometrics, a super specialized area of psychology, and not by teachers of English and mathematics. So all our test prep programs are designed by psychologists experts in psychometrics and modified according to class needs by the teachers who deliver the programs according to the needs of the students. Our psychometric experts know the tests inside out and help you beat them. We research the best of test prep programs available in the world and their pros and cons. We take inputs from students, parents and teachers, so that we can design programs according to the needs and wants of students. We found two types of test prep programs available in India, those offered by American test prep organizations and others offered by homegrown Indian mom and pop joints. The American test prep programs are designed for an American student and they work best for an American student. All of the aptitude tests such as GMAT, GRE, and SAT have been designed on the American syllabus which an American student has just studied in school or in college, so an American student does not really need to study these concepts. As a result, the American test prep programs do not focus on teaching the tested knowledge part but rather focus on certain test prep strategies and tricks which can help in improvement of a weak or mediocre student's score. A typical American student wants the greatest ROI, or return on investment, so he is not used to working hard but wants a certain score improvement with least efforts. But good and hard-working Indian students do not see a worthwhile score improvement in these American programs as they lack the basic knowledge being tested. The Indian test prep programs do not focus on test prep strategies and tricks but unnecessarily teach whatever English and math they know. The teachers of Indian test prep programs do not even know that the exams are not focused on the English and math which they are teaching, but the tests just use the language of English and math to design questions. Students joining such institutes work very hard but are unable to get a good score improvement because these students still do not understand the dynamics of the test and have not been trained in test-taking techniques. A lot of such problems can be avoided by an extensive teacher training and certification program, but Indian test prep institutes don't have the talent needed to conduct them. American institutes have started franchises in India and train Indian teachers to facilitate the programs, but certification and jobs are given to anyone who doesn't ask for a higher salary package. Have you heard the famous saying, "When you pay peanuts, you get only monkeys"? And such institutes have a lot of monkeys playing around with careers of students. The solution is in realizing the background and study behaviors of Indian students and benchmarking their performance according to the specific needs of the exam. Indian students are very hard-working and do hard work with the single target of the perfect score. Moreover, Indian students struggle with these standardized American exams such as SAT, GMAT and GRE as they are not familiar with American English and American context of the exams. Benchmarking of performance helps in identifying the necessary rules that Indian students have not been taught in their schools and helps in realizing the need for test-taking techniques. Indian students need to be taught all the rocket science behind the questions. Some things are completely new, say parallel construction in American grammar, the objective way needed in critical reasoning, or transposition in coordinate geometry, and evidence-based reading comprehension, which are not taught at all in Indian schools. Some American concepts clash with whatever has been taught in Indian schools and colleges. For example, rules of subjunctive mood may clash with subject-verb agreement rules taught in our schools. Still, there are some concepts taught to us in our schools which also tested on these exams, so they may just need a revision. This has to be followed by application of concepts on questions. This is where strategies for handling questions become important, as the multiple choice pattern and other designs of questions need specific strategies to avoid silly avoidable mistakes. This brings a quantum jump in scores. Now you attempt a lot of practice exercises to polish your skills. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Simulated exams or mock tests are valuable tools to understand what's missing in your preparation, and, later, to realize that if you know everything, what changes you still need to make in the way you handle yourself during the real exam to get an optimum score. Mock exams do a final polishing and a student understands the test dynamics. Teachers facilitate the delivery of test prep programs. They need to be masters of the tested subjects, know how to teach the subjects, empathize with students to understand what confusion students can have in the subjects, and keep the learning comprehensive and interesting enough so that a student can meet all the demands of the test. The hardest part for us at IvyLeague was to find the most efficient academicians in the test prep industry. We were surprised to find that the country's and the world's leading test prep organizations were the weakest in the most important part of delivery of their test prep programs, teachers. Because of impractical scaling up of their operations, teacher quality was seriously compromised. Any fresh graduate who would not be thrown out of classroom by the students had a confirmed job with the test prep institute. Now the teacher learned from his own mistakes. After teaching for about 5 years, when he would become somewhat better, he would actually become too expensive for the test prep institute to continue. This teacher would move out of the institute or be asked to leave because he would start suggesting changes to the test prep program, and these changes would come in the way of scaling up and markups. We bent over backwards to accommodate the most experienced faculty members to design and teach our programs. All our teachers have an average of 15 years of work experience. But apart from gray hairs, the deciding factor in selecting faculty members has been their excellent feedback and high standards of teaching ability. If I talk about our study material and program design, then we believe that the classroom teaching and study material have to comprehensively drive home concepts. Practice exercises should diagnose gaps in learning and give enough practice to become perfect, and have mock tests to master test dynamics. Scaled-up operations mean that even when a test prep institute has practice material and realizes that students need practice material to work hard, still more practice exercises cannot be given as it would cost money. At IvyLeague, we continuously prepare and polish up our practice material so that we can give a student as much of practice as needed to become the best. While designing our study material, we have only the needs and wants of a student in mind. This translates into a study material that effectively drives home every concept, and apart from a mandatory set of practice material, there is enough practice material for a very hard-working student, who doesn't want any stone unturned. So, we believe that an ideal test preparation should entail the following. 1. The GMAT is a modified IQ test or an intelligence test, and even before you start your preparation, you have intelligence. Moreover, you already have an exposure of English language and you have done a lot of mathematics till high school. So you will definitely be good at certain areas tested on GMAT, while you may be rusty or weak at other areas. So, as a first step, we benchmark your performance by subjecting you to a simulated or mock test before starting your preparation. This should be followed by an objective critical analysis from an expert teacher to comment on issues which may not be in public domain. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. Now, find the right set of books and a teacher who can make your learning challenging, comprehensive, engaging and fun. Learning and mastering the specific strategies and procedures to handle each type of question appearing on the real exam. This also entails identifying each type of question that appears on the real exam and knowing how to crack it by using its specific strategy and procedure. Understanding all concepts and rules tested on the real exam and applying them on a certain number of real exam questions until you become perfect. Clearing the concepts with your teacher on each and every question, in which you make a mistake and cannot realize what went wrong. Identifying concepts that you tend to forget. And identifying questions where you tend to make mistakes. Practice questions under a time constraint to decrease your response time to handle questions. Your accuracy dips down as you work faster, so work on it and take progressive tests having multiple topics. After you have attained a certain level of expertise, start taking mock exams to understand test dynamics and how a complete exam affects your accuracy and performance. Issues such as lower accuracy when you attempt a multiple subject and multiple topic test, shorter attention span, low stamina to use brain actively for 4 hours, test anxiety and nervousness, etc. should be identified. Take more tests and address whatever problems you have. Keep doing mid-course corrections in your preparation based on mock test performance and analysis. Be clear about the dynamics of the test day and be completely prepared for it, in terms of documents to carry to the test center, mandatory breaks during the test and how you can use them to your advantage, proctoring procedures, what to do if you suffer a test irregularity, what to eat or drink during the break, test center procedures, what to wear, etc. Mock tests are the final step in your preparation and they can have a toll on your nerves. So, keep yourself cool, upbeat and objective. Visualize yourself responding to case studies at your dream school, when you get bugged or tired. Hence, we at IvyLeague Career Services have tried to design classroom-based programs and one-on-one personalized attention programs which address these issues faced by students. We start with a diagnostic test or mock test to benchmark a student's performance and present position. The student receives a detailed analysis of performance to a subject, topic and question level. Once the classes start, students attempt a pre-class assignment to increase familiarity with the topic and understand the challenges involved. This is to pre-prime you up for the coming class. You don't have to learn the stuff in the pre-class assignment, instead you have to just read through it once to get familiar with the next topic to be taught in class. Another benefit of the pre-class assignment is that when the class starts, all the students in the batch are at the same threshold level from which the teacher can take things further easily. Now, the teacher teaches the topic in class and teaches every concept and sub-concept that has been tested on the actual exam previously. Class teaching is kept completely comprehensive, so if a topic such as modifiers and sentence correction involves 9 types of modifiers and 11 rules of modifier usage and 18 ways in which the questions can ultimately test you for modifiers, then we will teach you all of this stuff in class and make you practice it thoroughly through practice questions. Students are encouraged to take extensive notes during the initial concept teaching. Then teacher shows how to apply each concept on questions that test that concept. Now students attempt a certain number of questions in front of the teacher to identify any problems that still remain, and these problems of the students are solved. The class ends with detailed written assigned homework of 2 types, questions to check knowledge of concepts tested on the exam, which have been taught in class, and questions to test application of concepts, real exam questions from the official sources. We follow a closed feedback loop mechanism to train you. We wouldn't just be happy that we have taught you the right stuff, but we will ensure that you have understood and learned it well. We would like to be a bit strict here, and we will also check what you have learned and why are you not getting a 100% score. So the program has a lot of written homework, which is checked by teachers. Now, after the class, once a student is at home, the student revises class notes and has to attempt stuff from a practice workbook. The workbook has 3 parts: reiterated important concepts, to be revised and learned, concept tests, to identify whether you have learned all the concepts, and concept application tests, to check whether you know how to apply concepts on questions on each topic to identify whether a certain concept is not clear or application of the concept is not perfect. The workbook is submitted to the teacher, who carefully checks the homework and provides remedial actions. The remedial actions can be teaching the concept again, more classwork in front of the teacher, and more homework. Your teacher clears the concepts on each and every question, in which you make a mistake but you are unable to realize what went wrong. In this manner each topic, concept and question type gets perfected. The next stage is working under time constraints to hone time management and decrease reaction time to each question. So, now a student has to attempt practice questions under time constraints and has to decrease the average time taken per question. Attempting questions faster results in more silly mistakes also, so a greater focus under time constraints is the learning of this stage of preparation. As more and more topics are taught, a student gets ready for the next level of learning, multiple topic tests or progressive tests. A student needs to develop the ability to attempt a jumbled bunch of questions, random in terms of subjects, topics, concepts and difficulty levels, the way it appears on the real exam. This helps you to learn how to switch your mode of answering questions from one type to another. Say a problem-solving question designed on a word problem of time, speed and distance may need a different mode as compared to a data sufficiency question based on permutation and combination. The last level of learning happens by seriously taking a series of simulated exams or mock tests. The mock tests will point out the new test dynamics at play. Now, despite knowing how to solve each type of question, still under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and unfamiliarity with the newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. A. Anxiety. Just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. B. Lower attention span. You have an attention span of 1 hour, but this is a 4-hour exam, so after the first hour, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. C. Stamina. After an hour or 2 of testing, your brain gets tired, so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember, you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. D. Taking an online exam on the computer monitor is uncomfortable to a lot of students. You have always done paper and pencil kind of tests, so reading from the screen works against your scores. The solution is a greater number of mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on online testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. We would even like to handhold you during the real exam, but that would be unethical and is not permitted. Luckily, you would be so prepared for the real exam that you won't need us during the real exam. Based on specific requirements of our students, we have designed 2 programs to help students effectively, a classroom integrated program and a one-on-one personalized tutoring program. The classroom integrated program may be recommended for you if you have 4 months to prepare for the test and you can attend classes at our classroom locations. On the other hand, a one-on-one personalized tutoring program may be recommended for you if you have less time in hand to prepare for the GMAT, say 1 or 2 months to prepare for the test. If you want complete personalized attention with real-time monitoring of your progress by the teacher. If you want to learn at your own pace, fast or slow. If you are a high achiever and are ready to work hard to get the best possible score on the test. Or, if you cannot attend classes on a regular basis and need more flexibility of time. Now, if you are interested in taking help from IvyLeague to prepare for GMAT or handhold you in the complex admission process for the top-end global business schools, then, send us an email at mail@ivyleague.us.com. In your mail, give details about what you are dreaming of and what preparation have you done so far. You can attach an updated resume and also mention everything about yourself that can help us give you more informed advice. Also write down your personal cell phone number and a convenient time so that we can arrange one of our senior faculty members to have a discussion with you and advise you accordingly. Thanks for watching this session and your interest in knowing more about the Ivy League.